as we continue our coverage of what happened today in Eastern Independence. You are looking on the left at the photo of fallen Independence police officer Cody Allen, shot and killed this afternoon. On the right, live pictures from News Chopper 9, a police procession escorting the body of Officer Allen downtown from Center Point Medical Center to the Jackson County Examiner's office.
And again, the Independence Police Department has confirmed that one of his officers, Officer Cody Allen, and a Jackson County process server have been killed. We know 2 more officers are hurt after a shooting that began during an eviction in Northeast Independence. Now, again, police have identified the fallen victims as 35-year-old Officer Cody Allen and Draxel Mack, a civil process server in his early 40s. Officer Allen, who had been with the Independent Police Department for 2 years and in law enforcement for much longer, is survived by a wife, 2 kids, and his parents. And as for Mack, an employee of the Jackson County Courts for 12 years, is survived by his fiancee.
And again, we have 1 Independence police officer shot and killed, a Jackson County civil process server shot and killed. 2 more Independence police officers were wounded in this. One of those officers undergoing surgery. Both of those injured officers expected to recover. There is 1 suspect in police custody right now. We don't know a whole lot about that suspect right now, but we are working to get new details there. And again, for the benefit of those just joining us here on Channel 9, this all started at about 1:09 this afternoon. A house in a rural area of Eastern Independence, again, North Elsie Smith Road, East Bunshoe Road, out in Eastern Jack. An individual inside that house was being served an eviction notice. We don't know why yet. We don't know if it was a situation where someone was behind on rent or perhaps had missed mortgage payments or maybe was facing a back taxes issue. But in the course of the serving of that eviction notice, gunfire happened and that civil process server was wounded. The civil process server was able to call 911 for help. Apparently some neighbors nearby also heard the gunshots and also called 911 for help, and that's when 3 Independence police officers, I should say, came upon the scene. So we're talking about a story here with not 1 but 2 shootings, and that second shooting involving those 3 Independence police officers, 1 shot and killed, 2 wounded. All of this again happening early this afternoon. Again, 1 person in custody. The investigation, obviously, in its early stages, it will be led by the Missouri State Highway Patrol, which is pretty much standard procedure in a situation like this.
And according to the Missouri State Highway Patrol, it was Mack that was serving that eviction notice when someone from inside that home began shooting at them. Again, the process server or potentially other court employees may have been at that scene, but when they called 911 for help, that's when Officer Allen and his colleague responded. And that's why we are here right now. Let's go out to Rebecca Gannon, who has been at the scene or nearby the scene pretty much most of the afternoon. Rebecca, what have you learned so far, and how is it out there? How is the atmosphere?
Well, as the sun's been setting, I mean, we've been out here for hours at this point in time. And to your point, I would just want to say we're about half a mile, maybe 3/4 of a mile away from where this all happened. And as you've been saying, it happened right around 1:30 this afternoon. So Bunchun Road is the road right here behind me. And as you can see, it curves and it goes up. Then it turns, makes a nice dog leg, goes straight to the right, which is east on your screen as it goes off the screen there. And it's about half a mile away from there. That's where Bunshoe goes to. And as you mentioned, it's Elsie Smith Road. And that's where this whole situation unfolded. As Chris mentioned a little bit earlier, it's essentially 2 different shootings in the same location at 2 different times, and obviously multiple victims in that. This is a really rural area, as I'm sure you guys have seen, whether from its News Chopper 9 or just from everything that we've been talking about here. And with that, the investigation is going to take a lot of time because you don't have 14 witnesses that were in an apartment building, nor do you have, 10 homes that have Ring cameras all in a cluster really close to each other. So this is going to take a lot of time to piece together. Bunshoe Road did reopen right around 4:15, and that was pretty surprising considering that it was closed from essentially 1:30 onward. It took a lot to get even just the media into a staging area. And right now where we are is Anchor Point Baptist Church on top of the hill. So as I mentioned, we've kind of moved a little bit so you can kind of get a bigger picture of what the area is. It's Eastern Jackson County. It's a pretty rural area, and it's only a couple miles away from the Fort Osage High School and the Indian Trail Elementary School here. So there is a lot to piece together, and there's going to be some people to talk to, but there's not going to be a whole lot for investigators to share with us. Obviously, we got some information earlier, and my colleague Peyton Headley will talk about that in just a little bit here. But more so, the situation here right now is as the sun has started to set, it's really gotten quieter. It's almost back to what I assume it would have been at noon today, because from about 2 o'clock onward, there were so many sirens. And I mean, within every minute or so, you just heard another set of sirens over and over again, whether it was an ambulance or a fire truck or so many law enforcement coming out for that. And they were from the sheriff's office and obviously Independence Police and Kansas City Police, and so many different municipalities had someone coming here to help, because this is such a difficult situation to go through and such a chaotic situation at the time. But again, as we've hit the evening now, it's becoming a lot quieter. I would almost say back to normal, but obviously that's not going to be the case for so many families tonight. But that's what's happening here at Bundschuh Road, just off of Highway 7. What questions can I answer for you guys?
Yeah, Rebecca, you mentioned something that I think is worth repeating. Nearby that shooting scene, I believe two Fort Osage district schools, including Fort Osage High School, which was, I believe, on lockdown for some time this afternoon.
Excellent point, Chris. As we had heard the news about this, we were initially told go to Fort Osage High School because it's in the area of where it happened. I immediately called the district and said, what's going on? And the district spokesperson said, we are on lockdown, but it is solely as a precaution. We are miles away from where this shooting happened. None of our schools are involved in it, but as an absolute abundance of caution, we're going to lock down our schools. And that was around 1:45 in the afternoon, and they weren't dismissing for another hour or so, but she said we were absolutely locking down our schools, and they did. But then they also dismissed just right on time. By 3:30 in the afternoon, we saw a lot of school buses that were actually being rerouted because they weren't allowed to come down Bundschuh Road. Instead, they had to be rerouted around here. But they have, and that lockdown was lifted. And I'm sure there's going to be some discussions at the school tomorrow about what happened and what happened here, what happened half a mile away from here, and going forward what that looks like. Because I think, especially in the elementary school levels, we always tell kids to look for the helpers. And that's something that Mr. Rogers taught us, generations ago. But now, when you think about what happened to the helpers today, I think it carries a much more somber tone. And I think that's something that schools around the metro will have to deal with yet again. Chris.
Absolutely right. Rebecca, stay with us there for just a moment. More live pictures on the right from News Chopper 9 as the procession has arrived at the Jackson County Medical Examiner's office. And while we look at these live pictures and the photo of Officer Cody Allen, the Jackson County Executive Frank White has issued a statement and an order lowering flags across the county to half-mast. And the order reads like this: by the power vested in me by the Home Rule Charter of Jackson County, I hereby order all flags in the County of Jackson, State of Missouri, and all governmental buildings to be lowered to half-mast in honor of the lives and public service of Mr. Drexel Mack and Independence Police Officer Cody Allen. Rebecca, that scene that you're at right now, of course there was heavy police presence there earlier. I suspect it's, I don't know if anybody's still hanging around there or not, or is it just one of those situations where it's just us and it's back to some level of normalcy out there?
So this is all supposition because, again, we are half a mile, even 3/4 of a mile away from where this really happened. There is an Op 100 still underway there, and Peyton Headley will talk more about that in just a little bit. So there is still very much a law enforcement presence there at the scene. We don't have the sirens that are, going right by us. We don't have the flashing lights. We also haven't seen a lot of cars leave en masse, which tells me a lot of law enforcement either went to the east and then drove away, or they're all still there at the scene. And with that, when you've still got a tactical team on the ground making sure that everyone's safe, there's a lot that goes into making sure everyone is safe. And when you're in a situation like this, where, as we alluded to, 2 shootings in the same location injuring or killing 3 people, we have to take every sort of precaution to make sure that everyone around the area is safe, including the law enforcement that are responding. So I imagine there's still a lot of law enforcement there. I think they're there in some capacity, whether it's support and whether that's emotional support or whether that is just tactical support, and making sure that everything goes as it should, because today has not gone as it should for several of our law enforcement and court officers today. And their families are definitely feeling that. The communities are feeling that right now. I think I talked about this a couple of hours ago, that so many in the metro, as they got home, as they turned on their radios, as they turned on the televisions, checked their screens, they saw what had happened here today and right over there here today. And there's a sense, there's a somberness, there's a lot of people are upset, a lot of people are frustrated with how this is going, and they don't know what to do and they don't know what to change, but they are speaking out and showing support. And I think that is something that our metro area does really well. Unfortunately, we've had too many instances where we've had to do that, but it is something that our metro area does well, and show support. Whether it happened in Independence, someone in Olathe is putting a picture up or something like that. There's a lot of support across the board tonight for the people of this community and the law enforcement officers of our community. Chris.
Rebecca, as you mentioned, as we sort of put this story together on live television, sort of piece by piece, you mentioned something that I'd like to amplify just a little bit. There is at the scene, at that house, North Elsie Smith Road and East Bunchue Road in Eastern Independence, a collection of law enforcement and specifically Kansas City, Missouri Police tactical officers right now. We don't know what stage their work is in right now, but they've been there since not long after the shooting, not long after the scene was secured. Presumably they are or have or are still looking for people inside that house. You have federal ATF agents making sure there aren't dangerous devices like explosives or anything like that. But these are law enforcement officers who are going through that house, going through that scene with a fine-tooth comb to make sure there's nobody else inside and to make sure there's nothing else that could be threatening to those law enforcement officers once the investigation of that scene inside that house begins. And in the case of the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department.
Point of clarification,
yeah,
Chris.
Go ahead.
Point of clarification, Chris. I just want to say, in the briefing that we had, and again, Peyton Headley will probably touch on this more. In the briefing that we had, where Kansas City Police and Missouri Highway Patrol told us that there was an Operation 100, a tactical unit there on the scene, they had mentioned at the time no one had gone in that house yet. They wanted to make sure that everything was safe. They had no indication there was someone still in the house, but they said they had not gone into the house yet, at least from what I understand. And again, I think Peyton Headley can really touch on that in a little bit more detail than I can. But from what I understand, no one had gone inside the house. That may have changed in the last hour and a half, but that was the last briefing that we had, and the last thing I heard was that no one had gone into the house yet. There was no indication there was someone in the house, but they were taking their time out of an abundance of caution, and I think we can all understand why.
It's going to be an extensive investigation. Rebecca, thank you. Let's go to KMBC 9's Peyton Headley, who is also near the crime scene. And Peyton, you just arrived. Tell us what you've learned so far about this investigation.
Well, we know that it is still an ongoing and active investigation. I kind of want to go chronologically through what we know happened from that press conference that wrapped up a little more than an hour ago. So we know that Jackson County civil process officers went to this house to serve an eviction. I asked the press conference, the MSHP trooper who was speaking, if that's common practice, that they go on their own. He couldn't speak to that, but we know that a civil process officer had been shot and they called for backup. Independence Police responded, and when they responded while they were rendering aid to this officer who had been shot, they were shot as well. That's 3 Independence officers, one of them 35-year-old Cody Allen. He was killed. He leaves behind a wife and 2 young children. And the Jackson County civil process officer who was shot, he was killed as well. That's Drexel Mack. He has a fiance and adult children, we're told. Now, in any case like this, multiple different agencies responded, and we do know they have the male suspect in custody, but it's not clear how they took him into custody or where he was firing from. KCPD and MSHP both said that no one actually went inside of the house, and that could still be the case right now. So it is unclear how they got that suspect. We do know he has minor injuries, but again, this is a hard day for any police department and surrounding law enforcement agencies. But circling back to that investigation, KCPD, last to our knowledge, said that they are treating it as an Operation 100, and that is how they treat situations when they say someone is barricaded inside of a house. They don't think that anyone is still inside, but they're trying to be as safe as possible for some of these neighbors in the area. Some of the neighbors that they said were the ones that called 911. They heard those initial shots fired, and that is when Independence Police responded. So they are doing this all out of an abundance of caution. They don't think anyone else is inside, but they don't want to find out the hard way. So they are doing their best to de-escalate the situation. And again, you have to think these neighbors that are nearby, they heard the first shooting and they heard the second shooting. So likely a good move. They didn't go outside to check what was going on, but still an ongoing and active investigation just down the road here in Independence, guys.
Hey, Peyton, stand by there for just a moment. And for the benefit of viewers just tuning in, we have used the term Operation 100, and this may need a little bit of explanation. And Operation 100 is a term that I believe is exclusive to the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. It's a term that they have used for decades now. It means that specially trained tactical officers who are expert in a variety of law enforcement areas will converge on a scene. Often they will be responding to a person who is barricaded in a house or any sort of building. These are specially trained police officers, and they are available at a moment's notice. And in a situation like this, the Independence Police Department called upon the KCPD, and that's when the KCPD called out an Op 100, as it is commonly known within the department, and those officers are on that scene right now. Peyton, do we have any indication where the work that these tactical officers are doing, do we have any idea how far along they are, or what, if any, progress they've made?
We haven't heard since that last press conference that happened around 4:45, so about an hour and a half ago now. We know they're doing their best to de-escalate the situation. I imagine that they're trying to speak to anyone if they're inside of the house. I'm sure they've got all of the tools at their disposal out there right now. But currently, as of 6:15 this evening, we have no update as to how far this Operation 100 has gone. Chris.
Yeah, it's likely something that it will last as long as it will last. That's usually how these go. In many cases, in an Op 100 in Kansas City, Missouri, perhaps involving a barricaded individual, part of the team that responds to a situation like this includes hostage negotiators and people who are expert at diffusing situations and talking people out of dangerous situations, because priority one for any tactical officer in a situation like this is to make sure that it comes to an end, and it comes to an end with nobody hurt.
Right now, let's go to Independence Police Department, where we find KMBC 9's Darissa White. And Darissa, it looks like people are leaving bouquets of flowers and balloons for fallen officer Cody Allen. I see balloons right now on the screen.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Bria. Right now, a small memorial has started to form. There's another memorial that we'll get to a little bit later with 2 flags, but right here what you're looking at is just some balloons for the officer Cody Allen. We spoke with one lady who left the balloons. She said that her son is in fact a police officer, and she said the first thing that she heard when she heard about the shooting was her son, and it just brought tears to her eyes. She became very emotional, and she said that she had to pick up these balloons and leave these in front of the police department building. You know, it's a sad day. We spoke with another man who said he's a Vietnam vet. And I'm going to just turn right here. He left these 2 flags right here. He was visibly upset as well. He began crying. He said that this is a sad day for Independence. You know, we just lost the 2 officers in 2021. So he said that he wanted to leave these just to show his respect, just as a sign of, you know, respect, because this is a sad day. This brings tears to everyone's eyes. Both of the people that we spoke to got visibly emotional, and we'll bring you that a little bit later, but people are starting to leave flowers. They're starting to leave flags, balloons. I'm certain that there are going to be other tributes to Officer Cody Allen a little bit later. We also heard that the flags are going to be at half staff tonight. We're not sure exactly what time that's going to be, but they are going to come down. Right now they're at full staff, but just to pay respect to Officer Cody Allen. That's all from Independence in front of the police department. We'll send it back to you, Bria, and Chris in the studio.
Well, Darissa, you're outside Independence Police Headquarters there off the square in Independence, and I have to believe, after seeing your report outside the police station and the people that you have seen up to now, I tend to think that it is just the beginning of what will be one emotional scene after another throughout the evening.
Absolutely. I mean, the people that we spoke to were visibly upset. I mean, tears coming out of their eyes. The woman that we spoke to that left the balloons, she said that she just thought of her son. Her son is a police officer, and she said she had to come out here to pay their respect. The man, too, who left the two flags, he was visibly upset. I mean, this is a hard day for everyone in Independence, not only in Independence, but in Kansas City as a whole.
Well, I think it's interesting, too, that you're seeing not just people with obvious law enforcement connections coming to the Independence Police Department to share their thoughts and prayers, but people who aren't in law enforcement, who are citizens, who are taking a moment like this to honor the work and the sacrifice of these people every single day of the year.
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to see more people just coming here. The police department plays a big role in this community, and everyone shows them so much respect because they have to do so much throughout the year. So I'm sure that we're going to see more people leave these tributes, the balloons, the flowers. There's a growing memorial on the other side. Someone left some flowers. I tweeted that out, flags. This is a big deal. This, they love their police officers. We love our police officers, and they just want to show respect.
Darissa, thank you. Again, Officer Cody Allen, 35 years old, 2 small children, a wife, a public servant. The list goes on. We heard his police chief talk about how dependable he was and how he was a person that they could rely on. So an incredibly heartbreaking story that we continue to update. And as we learn more information, we work to gather more details to bring you the latest info as we continue. Let's talk a little bit about those other officers that were injured, 2 of them, which one has serious injuries, but both are expected to survive. So at least that's an update that we could be happy about.
As we look at live pictures from News Chopper 9 there on the right, the end of that police procession, the Jackson County Medical Examiner's Office, let us touch base one more time with KMBC 9's Brian Johnson outside Centerpoint Medical Center, which is where the injured were taken this afternoon and where we have seen, and I suspect, Brian, we continue to see a heavy law enforcement presence.
It seems to have, checking behind me now, there's a few left, but I think a lot of them have gone inside the hospital, gone home, gone to the medical examiners, or gone to colleagues. So it's actually starting to thin out here. This is such a tragic event caused by something senseless. Our records department here at Channel 9, they've been digging into this. The home where this happened apparently was purchased through some delinquent land sales last year, and so that some back tax issues. The house appears to have been sold, and that's what perhaps prompted the eviction notice, is because the change of hands. In dealing with the situation that came out of that, so many people have been impacted. 4 people shot, 2 people dead, and a police department now reeling with its 3rd officer killed in the line of duty in 3 years. The chief of police got very emotional this afternoon, calling Officer Cody Allen a hero, very much so, a unique, one-of-a-kind officer, and he said that he responded without hesitation and that he is proud of the example that Cody Allen left and so grateful for his deep love. Take a listen to what the chief was saying.
That Officer Allen is a hero. He did exactly what the men and women of law enforcement are called to do day in and day out. And I could not be more proud of him and his service to this community. He's actually served in several departments, first in Grandview, and then he came to us for several years. He is 35 years old, was 35 years old. Knowing Officer Allen, he took a job in the private sector to try something different and realized, like so many of us, that this is ingrained in who you are. So he answered that call to come back to Independence, and that's not lost on me. I could not be more proud of him, and this community could not be more proud of him.
When was that? When did he come back?
He's been back now for about 2 years.
Does he have any family, wife, children, parents?
Both, all of the above. So he has a wife, parents, and 2 small children, and so we just ask for privacy for them. Obviously, the days and weeks ahead, years ahead, a lifetime's worth. You don't ever fill that void. So we will stand with them. They have a very strong family support system to surround them. And we will be there. We will get through this. But as you can imagine, today is an absolutely devastating day. He always had a smile. He was the guy that when you go on a call, you knew he was going to be there. He could diffuse things in a moment's notice. He was right there to back you up. The beard that he grew, we always gave him some grief for in his return, but always had that smile. He is one of a kind. He is a human being among human beings.